Morning, guys. Can you hear me, see me well?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. All right, let me finish my quick setup here and share my screen, and we will start. All right, guys. So today we're gonna start. Like our official last week, number 10 in our bootcamp, and today we're gonna start the topic related to the BDD and the cucumber. And on Tuesday, I will continue like show you the cucumber, show you like more the features of your cucumber. And on the Thursday, we will probably do like more algorithm exercises. So because like again, as I said many times, like most probably on your interview process, you will mostly solve algorithm questions. So it's like very important to train them over and over again. And more than that, I can tell you, while you are on the job market, I would recommend you to set your goal, at least solve one algorithm every day on the lead code. So to keep your mind like on shape and do not lose like a focus. So if you will like solve one algorithm per day, you're pretty much going to be like comfortable to solving them on the interviews. So it's like my personal recommendation for you. All right, so let me share it. So today, again, as I said, it's going to be related to topic is going to be related to the BDD. And so my question for you guys: have you heard about BDD before, or maybe like you already using them? Not in automation, but maybe in development, maybe in when you're writing a test cases. Like, what do you know about BDD so far? Okay, so I see people you don't know, that's fine. So you're gonna figure out today, but I'm pretty sure you've heard BDD term very, very often, because a lot of companies trying to use BDD. Well, it has a lot of advantages and disadvantages, and of course, everyone's try to like make communication between developers, testers, and product managers like more easier, and that's why BDD was introduced. Okay, so I see many of you don't know. So BDD is basically methodology of developing software, which is based on the like scenarios based, right? Based on the examples. So usually, like, what does it mean to us? So we have like a three participants in a development process, right? So we have a product manager who are writing requirements and who usually like say what I want you to be developed and tested. So product manager usually creates use cases. He creates like Jira tickets, and pretty much he defines all the development work that needs to be done, right? And we have developers who are actually writing the code based on the requirements provided by product managers, right? And third part is testers, QA engineers, who are actually testing what developers did, and they want to make sure it's actually working. And pretty much like all requirements are met, and product has a good quality, right? And BDD approach, the benefit of that when product manager, developer, and QA engineer, they're all using the same language, right? And what do I mean by the same language? It's like example-based language, which focus on the behavior, on the customer behavior, right? So they're not like focusing what needs to be done. He actually explains and describes different use cases that needs to be considered while developing to make like, to keep focus on the developers and testers, like on the scenarios. Like, so this is the first scenario, this should happen in this scenario. This is the second scenario. This is what need to be happen in this scenario. And this is the third one, and so on and so on. So this is like pretty much what BDD is all about. And when I say testers, I also mean QA automation engineers. It's because, we're also part of the QA flow, right? So in a BDD, like one of the most popular language format, it's used Gherkin. Have you guys heard about Gherkin? Or, maybe you guys heard about the Cucumber, but Cucumber is just like automation framework. It's just the implementation of Gherkin. But have you guys heard about the Gherkin before? Nope. Okay. Oh, Dmitry and Vladimir heard it. That's because you guys passed our QA, like manual QA bootcamp, and that's why you covered Gherkin, right? You pretty much learn how to write test cases in the Gherkin language. Okay, so for you, it's going to be a little bit more familiar than for others, but that's fine. We're going to like cover it again. And basically, what you guys learn in the manual bootcamp to create test cases in this Gherkin format. So we're going to do exactly the same thing, but for automation. So it's going to be exactly the same thing, exactly the same idea. So what's the Gherkin? Gherkin, it's pretty much, as it says here, business readable domain specific language. So it has its own standard, and it's usually described on the very strict syntax, and it's describes the scenarios using the following keywords, like given, when, then, right? So if in a manual, like if in like a regular manual test case, we have a precondition, we have a test steps, and we have an expected result. In a Gherkin, it's pretty much the same thing, but instead of precondition, it's called given, like what was before. And instead of like test steps, it's called when. It's pretty much our test steps. And our expected result, it's going to be defined in the keyword then. So Gherkin is pretty much describes scenarios, test cases, more shorter ways using like a given, when, then keyword. So a little bit later, I'm going to show you exactly how it's look like on the specific example. And so what is Cucumber? I'm sure you guys probably heard a lot about Cucumber, like many companies using the Cucumber. If you like saw videos from our meetups, you probably noticed like a lot of companies nowadays using the Cucumber. Of course, again, it has its own pros and cons. But what's the main idea implementation of Cucumber? It's pretty much when company wants to stick to this BDD flow, right, across all the departments and including the QA automation. So basically, Cucumber, it's test automation framework, right, to write test cases and to execute them using this Gherkin language, and which supports the Gherkin flow. So Cucumber, again, it's like testing framework, right? Another testing framework. And for us, after we will implement it, we're gonna run our test using like TestNG, which is like original test runner. And in top of that, we're also gonna use a Cucumber. So it's gonna be like our first layer. Second layer is gonna be our TestNG. And so they're all gonna contribute and work together. Okay, so Cucumber, it's test automation framework, right, which implements a Gherkin. And a Gherkin is just a syntax, and the Gherkin itself not related to the automation at all, but Cucumber related to automation because it's a test automation framework. So that's the difference between them, because many companies, they are confused by what's the difference between Cucumber and Gherkin. All right, so what's next? So given, when, then, it's this is the format to write scenarios, right? In a Gherkin world, there is no test cases, there's only scenarios. And it does know about test cases, like, I mean, because it's not limited only for testing, right? As I said, like product managers using them, developers using them, and they all call each test case. I mean, for us it's test case, but for them it's called scenario. And that's why we're not gonna use test case word, we're gonna use a scenario because it's like more acceptable in a Gherkin and Cucumber world. All right, so again, as I said, it's used three main portions. So the first one is a given, and a given is our precondition, right? So for example, in a test case, when we go to the login page and add like email, in a test case, we've trying to log in as an existing user, we should have like a precondition saying like user should have existing email and password address, right? And this is going to be our precondition when we're going to say user have already credentials, right, in the system. So this is our precondition. Or another precondition may be like you open login page, right? So this is going to be our precondition. When it's going to be our steps. So pretty much like all of the steps, like add email, add password, click to the login button, is going to be specified on the when section here. And then section, it's about expected result. So pretty much when we used assertions, right, in our automation scripts, or in a manual world when we use expected result, that's going to be exact the same thing as the then keyword here. In a then, we're only going to specify expected results. All right, so let's move on. Scenarios, again, as I said, in a Gherkin world, there's no test cases. There is only scenarios. And so please try to use like scenario instead of test case, because scenarios is like, it's like more broadly used across like all the different departments and all the different people in the company. Okay, so why do we need it? Why do we need Gherkin in like Cucumber in general? So we pretty much eventually, you will see that, and your test cases will be like more simplified, and your test case is gonna be written in a human readable language, right? So eventually, we're gonna get rid of Java part in our test case level, right? And our test case is gonna be written on the Gherkin style, right, in a human readable language, and that means that our test cases, we don't need like, we don't need people who knows programming language, how to write test cases, right? So eventually, if you specify, if you will make your test cases written in human readable language, pretty much everyone can contribute more test cases, right? Your manual QAs who doesn't know how to write Java code, they can write new test cases for you. Your product managers or business analysts, they can also go, maybe contribute, maybe read. At least they will understand what's going on, and they will understand the logic for these automation scripts, because everyone in the company will know what exactly your tests are doing without even knowing like programming language, right? So this is a key goal here, basically. To move like a test logic out of Java or any other programming language and make it one unique, specific human readable language. All right, so so structure of Cucumber, we're gonna have like a step definitions, we're gonna have tests, and we're gonna have a support files. So again, our test is going to be on a human readable language. You won't write any single Java code right there. It's going to be on a given when then statement. And because Java by default, he doesn't understand the human readable language, right? Even though you're specifying something there, it needs translation, right? Because when you say like, I open login page, Java doesn't know what does this mean, right? And you will need to specify translation for each step that you're gonna use and that you're gonna reuse after that. Then we're gonna use tests, and then we're gonna use like support files. In the support files, it's pretty much gonna be all like configurations and all additional information that you will need to use. Okay, so step definition, again, as I said, is pretty much going to be our translation for Java to explain what we actually mean when we say, I open login page, right? Because Java won't understand that. It needs, it requires actually for us to specify each, for each step, like Java translation. So that's what we will do here. Okay, so this is how step definition is gonna look like. So let's say if you are gonna introduce like a new step, saying like I have like some cookies in my belly, right? As an example. So you need to say, okay, if I use this keyword, please trigger this method, which called I have like n cookies in my belly, and this method should execute this following piece of code, right? System out print system out format cookies and the number. And again, as I said, we pretty much will need to do that for each of the test cases that we're going to use here. All right, so I'm going to show you later. We're actually going to refactor our code using the Cucumber. And the feature files is actually our files with test cases. Again, like we're not like for our test cases, we're not going to use .java extension. We're going to use that feature extension, and it's going to be related only for test cases itself. And so this is like a feature test example. And by the feature, so you can see that in the above, feature is more like test suite, right? The feature can include like multiple test cases. It's going to be like our suite, like for example, login suite, sign up suite, or offer listing page suite, and so on and so on. And here also we're going to use a scenario. Scenario, again, as I said, is going to be our test case. And in the scenario, we're going to have a scenario name. Like Sunday isn't Friday. This is actually our test case title, right? Scenario name. And then we're going to have a precondition given saying like today is Sunday, and when it's going to be our test case step when it says like I ask whether it's Friday yet, and then it's actually our expected result, right? And here specifier should be told nope because it's not Friday. I mean, kind of like in this example, I mean, of course, sometimes you need like more steps, right? So let's say if in your when section, you need to add more additional steps, you can always use and keyword. So you can say given like something, when something else, and I do something else, and something else, and then I will get this result, right? So you can expand these steps more and more using the and keyword. Okay, so let's move on. So yeah, so this is like all the keywords that we're gonna use. Feature is gonna be for our test suite, which will include like multiple scenarios or multiple test cases. Description optional if you want to add like additional description to the test suite. Scenario is gonna be our test cases, given is gonna be our preconditions, when is gonna be our actual test logic, and then is gonna be our expected result here. All right, so it's too early for questions. Let's actually move to our code, and let's see how it's like, how we're going to start to refactor our code to make it more like look like a Cucumber. All right, so let me share my IntelliJ IDE. So first of all, what you will need to do, we will need to, I mean, this is like our current, framework, right? Which use like TestNG, and which we are like in which we are like this is our test cases file, right? And they right now written in Java, but eventually we want to get rid of them, and we want to use like feature files, right? So what we need to do first? So in the first, we need to add Cucumber dependencies, right? To Gradle, so it will like install them, and also we will be able to use them. To install the Cucumber dependencies, let me actually get it from my notes here. Yeah, so this is a Cucumber dependencies that we will need to use, and like any other dependencies, we need to add them in the dependencies section here. And after I add it, my Gradle should automatically load them right after. And let me actually copy them as well, and I'm gonna post it on the Slack. So in case you guys want like add these dependencies as well, and in case you want to repeat my steps, so to be like on the same page as I am. All right, so this is our dependencies. So it should load like all the Cucumber files like for Java to be able to understand the Cucumber libraries that we're gonna use here. So this is step number one. Step number two, we need to install additional plugins for our IntelliJ IDE for that to be able to understand our feature files, right? So for that, we need to go to IntelliJ IDE. We need to go to the files, and we need to go to the preferences. Oh yeah, actually it's not file, it's IntelliJ IDE. So we need to go to IntelliJ IDE, we need to go to the preferences. And here in the plugin section, we need to look for the Cucumber and for Gherkin. So you see, I already installed them, but because you don't, probably guys, you don't have a Cucumber and Gherkin yet. So you just need to type the Cucumber, right? So you don't need the Cucumber for Groovy, Kotlin, Scala, or for others. You just need the Cucumber for Java.
That
right?
you cannot see.
Oh, you can see my screen? Okay.
I mean, can you please change the color of the screen from white? Maybe it's way better, much better. More visible for everyone.
So you guys don't like my, you don't like my dark screen here?
I don't like black, and I think like with a background, white background is way better to read stuff.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's see how can I do that. Build tools. I think it's editor, right? Editor, color scheme. File types, inspection from general. I don't remember where is the settings for.
Okay, you can do that in the break, maybe, I don't know. So can you please repeat the step?
Yes, I mean, you just need to add dependencies like test compiles in the.
Okay.
And it's like, I mean, pretty much that's it. Just add it here, and it's gonna load all the dependencies. And then, so you guys can see my screen, right? So if I open the preferences, you see the preferences, right?
Yes, but I really, I don't like black screen, especially when you have to explain things. It's better white. So people, they cannot see because they never experience. So I attend lots of classes, and white screen is way better than black screen.
Okay, yeah, I can take a look how to change it.
Thank you.
Because if I'm gonna, actually, let me see if I can Google it really quick. IntelliJ IDE change background color. Settings, editors, color fonts, console colors. Oh no, actually I need the main view, right? Settings, editor, color, general. Let's see. Settings, editor, color, fonts, general. Settings, editor, fonts. Wait, is it here? I don't. Oh yeah, here we go. So default, I believe. Let's try to apply it. Okay, so how do you guys look it now? How do you guys like it now?
I like it.
Okay. Okay.
You can make the screen a little bit bigger. It's more visible as well, but it's clear.
Okay. To make it bigger, like I probably, let me see, preferences, font. Let's see, 36. Okay, it's too much. 20.
24 maybe.
24. Okay, is 20 fine? Can you guys see that? Okay, perfect. All right, yeah, so now hopefully this will be more visible for you. So yeah, first of all, as I said, add these dependencies that I sent on the Slack. It's step number 1. Step number 2, you need to go to the IntelliJ IDE, go to the preferences, and you need to find, not editor, you need to go to the plugins. And here you need to go to the marketplace and type Cucumber. And here's a lot of things that you will find. What you will need to have here, you need to install Cucumber for Java. So this is the first thing. And the second, you need to install the Gherkin plugin. Because I already installed it, for you, after you will install them, you will probably need to restart the IntelliJ IDE to apply these changes right after. So why do we need them? So we want our IntelliJ IDE to understand the Gherkin language. And without these plugins, you probably will see like a lot of errors. And in this case, it will be hard for you to write new test cases. All right, so after you guys did that, after you reinstalled IntelliJ IDE, so our next step, we will need to create our first feature file, right? So that's going to be our first test case. So to create our test case, our test cases are going to be stored on the resources because they are not part of the Java code anymore, right? So our test case is going to be like our external files, not related to the code at all. And that's why we need to go to the resources. We need to create a new package here or directory. And we need to call it as a, okay, let me type it here, features, right? So we have a features, that's where we're gonna store our new test cases. And here we need to create another file. And we need to create our first test case in a Cucumber. And it's gonna be, let's actually start with login because it's one of the simplest thing. Login.feature. And remember guys, your file extension here is gonna be .feature. It's not gonna be .java anymore. We're gonna use .feature as our extension for all of our Cucumber test cases. Okay, so let me click OK, and so it's gonna be here. So you see, guys, after you install the Cucumber and Gherkin plugins, you will see the icon here is going to be changed to the Gherkin, right? And this means your plugin works. If you don't have these plugins, so what you will see that IntelliJ IDE, it will complain saying like, I don't recognize feature, I don't recognize like a feature extension, right? So that's going to be harder for him to understand what it should do with that. All right, so what's next? Next, we're going to create a feature name, right? Feature, again, as I said, is going to be our test suite. And we can name it as a login feature, right? Defining pretty much the name of our test suite. And after the feature, we're gonna create our first scenario. So we're gonna call it like scenario, and we can call it like a login success, right? Login success. And I mean, again, you should not like have like any specific formats. You can like add spaces here. You can add any like dots. There's like no naming conventions. The only thing is you need to specify a scenario and 2 dots for the cucumber to understand this is actually scenario's name. And after that, we need to define our steps, right? So we need to use given, when, then keywords. So our first given is going to be like probably open browser, right? Open browser. So this is our precondition because we can't perform like any test on the login page without opening the browser. And then we're going slowly to the test steps. So we can say when I open login page, right? And my step number 2 is going to be I add my email address. It's going to be like azat testpro.io email to the email field, right? And then we can say, and I add QWERTY. I add QWERTY password to the password field, right? And I click login button. And then I need to specify my expected result. This is going to be on the then keyword. And here I can say then I see login successful message, right? So this is going to be our test case. And as you can see, it's on human readable language, right? And pretty much we can understand what it does. And it actually highlights them as a yellow because we didn't specify the Java translation for each of the steps. But even now you can see this is how our test case is gonna look like. And again, there's like 0 Java code here, right? It's just a definition of the steps. And pretty much if in your company, you guys using a Gherkin to write manual test cases, pretty much for you is going to be like no difference, right? Maybe besides the feature declaration and scenario declaration. All right, so what's the next step, guys? Next step, we need to translate it to the Java, which of these steps actually means, right? So it will understand our like English language here. So for that, we need to create additional package. It's going to be step definitions, and we need to create it under the Java file here, under test and Java. So let's move it here, and let's create our Java class. And let's actually, before the Java class, let's create package, and let's call it as a step definitions. And here we can say login step definitions, right? All right, and here we don't want to add it to the GitHub yet, so it's going to be here. So this is our login step definitions. And so what we need to do here first. So first we need to use annotations from the cucumber. So it's going to be given, right? And we can see it's actually already defines the libraries that I need to import. So I can just double click on that. And on the given, I need to define my step name, right? So it's going to be open browser. Okay, so after that, I will need to create my testing method for opening the browser, right? So pretty much I will need to create Java method here, which will open the browser for me. So it's going to be public void, and the scenario name is going to be open browser, right? And by the way, in the Cucumber world, they usually don't use like camel convention, right? So because originally Cucumber was implemented, I believe, for Ruby language, right? And after the Ruby language, it was translated to the Java. And after they translated to the Java, they pretty much copied the Ruby syntax for declaring the methods, right? So instead of like using the camel case, where you defined new word with capital word, you need to define it with underscore and don't use like any upper cases. So your open browser method is gonna look like this, which will be very familiar for you if you work with Python or Ruby. This is how they are declaring the methods, right? So this is their style. So please try to keep the style as well, because it just used to be like that. All right, so open browser, and here we will need to open our Chrome, right? So for now, let's use like our old way to initiating the Chrome browser. That's going to be our, let's actually go here, and let me copy our Chrome options. Okay, so Chrome options, right? And after the Chrome options, I need to add option to ignoring SSL certificates. Otherwise, it's going to complain about the queries. Not Firefox, I need Chrome options, right? And after that, we need to define it right here. Okay, so it's not going to be driver set, it's going to be our WebDriver driver, right? So let me actually do that here, WebDriver driver. And here we can specify it like that. Actually, it's going to be for, because like we use a Chrome, because we use a Selenium grid. And if we don't want to use Selenium grid, we can just define it like using the old way, which is going to be our add exception, remove additional, and the capability is going to be our Chrome options, right? Okay, perfect. So now we are, here we are not using a thread-based driver, because for now we're going to use in a single thread. So for now, let's use a driver for now. And on the driver initiation, we still pointing to our Selenium grid, right? If you guys don't want to do that for now, you can just use your single Chrome driver file here. And in this case, you don't have to initiate the Selenium grid. Okay, so after you initiated the browser, you need to say, where's that? Where's my step? You need to define I open login page, right? So you see here, because I defined the open the browser right here as a step, right? So my login feature, it does not complain anymore that this step is not defined, right? So it's clearly can see that, and it's clearly can see it was defined. So now let's do the same thing for other steps as well. So let's say when I open the login page. And for the when, I also need to import from the Cucumber. And instead of open browser, of course, it's going to be open login page. open login page. I don't need this exception anymore. And what I need to do here, I need to say driver get, and we need to go to our Quidus test environment, right? So let's go to the quidus.tk. Okay, so for now, because I mean, it will take a while until I will like define all of the steps, let's actually test that it works. And for now, let me comment out these steps here. So to comment out on the feature file, you don't, I mean, you can't use double slashes anymore because it's like, it works on Java, but doesn't work on the feature Cucumber file. If you want to comment out something on the Cucumber, you just need to select them and press command. I mean, pretty much the same keywords like command and slash, and you will need to use pound signs to comment out all of these steps for here. So in this case, they are not gonna work. All right, so given I open browser, when I open login page, and then I need to say that I close browser, right? I close browser. Let's define this. And here is gonna be, let me copy this step. And let's name it as a then. And let's add the import. I close browser. Close browser. And it's gonna be driver.quit, right? I did a typo here. Okay, driver.quit. All right, so for now, what we did here, we defined the login feature file, which is gonna be our test case, right? And for each of this test case, we defined translation and login step definition. And as you can see here, each of these steps, they are like attached to specific Java method, right? And this is how like Java understand what this what each of the steps are actually doing. Okay, does it make sense so far, guys? Like, are you like following me? Does it makes reasonable what I'm doing, or you need to like you want me to do more clarification here? Okay, so hopefully it does. So let's move forward. So guys, before, so here is one difference we need to add to our framework, right? So again, as I said before, we use the test-ng to execute all of our tests. So for now, we're gonna use the test-ng as well, but test-ng is gonna be execute the Cucumber runner file. So we will need to add additional configuration file to execute all of our Cucumber tests, right? So what does it mean for us? We need to create one more configuration file for Cucumber runner. So under the Java, you need to create new Java class and name it as a Cucumber runner, right? And in this Cucumber runner file, we're gonna define all the settings for the Cucumber for test-ng. Pretty much here, it's gonna tell test-ng how to run our Cucumber test cases, right? So I don't wanna go over these configurations because it's gonna be like, let me actually find my notes here. Yeah, here we go. So this is a configurations file for Cucumber. Again, guys, I don't want to like you go over like one by line because you don't really need that, because this is just the configurations, right? And pretty much here, we're just defining like where to find, excuse me, where to find our test cases and how to trigger Cucumber runner. So I'm gonna copy this code as well for a Cucumber runner, because you can also reuse it. And let me post it on the Slack channel here. I mean, pretty much don't try to understand that, because in most cases you don't need most of this part. The only part that you may need, it's a Cucumber options. That's we're gonna talk a little bit later what you can do with that. So pretty much here it's configurations for test-ng. It pretty much tells test-ng how to run Cucumber tests, and that's all what it does here. And after that, for our test-ng XML file, let's say for regression XML, right? Instead of specifying we need to run a login test, right? Instead of that, right now we need to say we want to run Cucumber runner file instead of login test, right? So pretty much our XML file will trigger this class, and this class pretty much will trigger all of these feature files that's specified right here. Okay, so now looks like I didn't miss anything. Let's actually try to implement it. Let's try to run it and see if they're gonna work. So let's use Gradle clean test. I believe it's a test regression, right? Let me open my build Gradle file. Yeah, test regression, but our Gradle test is also gonna trigger regression XML, right? So we can use a Gradle clean test here. Okay, let's run it. Okay, so now we can see it opens up Quides. It opens their main page, and it's closing right after, and we can see our build successful message. All right, guys, one more time. So what we did here, step by step. First of all, we are installed all these dependencies for a Cucumber, right? To be able to work with Cucumber libraries. Step number 2, we installed our plugins. So we went to the IntelliJ IDE preferences. Here we typed Cucumber, right? Not Cucumber for Java. Let me search. And all you need to install just a Cucumber for Java and a Gherkin, and make sure they are installed, right? This is step number 2. Step number 3, you need to create your login feature file, right? And define your test case here. Step number 4, you need to translate the steps for the Java, and they're gonna be on the step definitions. And so they're gonna be in a login step definition file here, right? And here we pretty much need to add translation for each step. For opening the browser, I open login page and I close the browser, right? Step number 5, we need to add Cucumber runner configurations, pretty much to tell test-ng how to run our Cucumber files. And step number 6, we in the like XML file, we just, instead of triggering our individual test class, we just triggering the Cucumber runner, and it will just run this Cucumber runner, and this is how it's going to execute our test cases. Okay, question from Vladimir. How you created login feature file? Because I missed it. To create a login feature file, again, guys, you need to go, because our test cases, it's not written in Java anymore, right? So if you open the test case, you can see they don't have any single line of code for the Java, right? They are in a pure human readable language using the Gherkin format. So because of that, we don't create these feature files on the Java folder, right? We create them in a resources folder. On the resources folder, we create features folder here. I mean, to create a folder, you just right click here and specify directory. And under the features, you're just creating a new file. You're just saying new, file and saying a login feature or sign up that feature, right? And this is how you can create feature file test cases. Yep. All right, guys. So now let me actually finish to add translation for the steps, because I want to have a real test case here, not just our step. So let me add definition for this steps as well. So I add email to the email field. So it's going to be here, right? I add email. Let's name it as I add email. And so for adding the email, well, it's going to be more trickier, right? We will need to add value to our email field. So we pretty much need to do the same way as we did. We need to define a locator, and we need to pass like a send keys. So let's actually for now use our old way. Let's say find driver, find element, without even using the explicit wait for now. And find element by, I can strictly use by ID, right? And by ID, I can specify my ID value here, which is going to be the email. And send keys is going to be my value here. Okay, so next step is going to be by adding the email field, right? Sorry, not the email, but the password. So let me add it here. I add password. And it's going to be the same thing, password. And my password is going to be QWERTY1. And so I need to click to the login button. Okay, let me define it here as well. Let me paste it here. And let me rename the method name. Let me say I click login button. And here I need to actually find the locator, because I believe it doesn't have an ID here, right? Yeah, it has a type submit. And in this case, I will probably need to use a CSS or XPath locator. So let's see if this is a unique. Yeah, this is a unique locator. Let's use that. And find element by CSS selector. Let's pass the CSS selector, and let's use this click method here. All right, and the last one, I see a login success message. Let's actually skip it for now. No, actually, no, let's not skip it. Let's still define it. Let's still define it. I see login success message. All right. And let's just leave this method empty for now. All right, so now we translated all the steps, and let me run it one more time to make sure it works. You know what, guys? I made a mistake here. Instead of, I need to open this page, right? And I specified Twidos main page. So let's try one more time. Okay, and okay, that's weird. Let's try one more time. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Okay, let me close these browsers. Okay, so it's open the browser, right? It's open the browser. Here, let me see, maybe I did some mistake here. Find element, elements. Seems to be fine. Okay, let me see. What's the mistake I could have made here? So driver. So it's open as a driver here. It adds my email field to here. It adds my.
I think, did you see the type submit? I think you have to delete the slash dash, I forgot.
Where?
Login button. I click login button. Drive by S. Yeah, I think you have to delete the, not the quotes, the other one.
Yeah, I see, I see. But that's actually fine because you see, I mean, I can do that, but because it's use a backward slash, it's pretty much ignores it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can use double quotes inside of the string, right? But if you add the backward slash here, it actually ignores them.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the problem. Okay.
Can be private. Okay, I open login page. I email. Okay, have a typos here. Okay, guys, let's try open login page and close the browser. As it was before. Okay, so now it looks like it works. Let me add, what happens if I add the email field here? Let's see what's gonna happen. Okay, it doesn't do anything, right? It still says it's successful, which is weird. All right, let me try, you know what, let me try something. Let me add, because here we don't have like any implicit weights, right? Even though we use like find elements. So let me say driver, manage, and timeouts. And let's use implicit weights. And let me copy that from our base test, right? Yes, this is what I need to, this is what I want here. Okay, so let's try if you 50 seconds implicit weight timeouts. Let's see why it doesn't want to add anything here. ID email, name email. Let's see what's up here. As driver find element by ID, emails and keys. Well, seems to be fine for me. Let me actually take a quick look to my notes here that I defined here. Send keys. So they are public. Okay, let me try to restart my IntelliJ ID, not the IntelliJ ID. Let me try to restart my Selenium grid. Maybe it was on the bad state for some reason. Okay, so this is a hub. And this is a node, right? So let me start with hub first. Okay, so that's used. Let's try to run it one more time. Okay, let's see, it's still opens the login page, right? But now it's quit it right after. That's very interesting and very weird. Okay, Mariana, so you've passed me as a,
yeah, but I'm just like, you see email? There's another symbol in front of email. Maybe you can try that. I'm just trying to help.
Yeah. I don't think it's, I mean, it doesn't really matter because we don't use like a page factory here. So it should be like the same thing. Okay, let me try CSS selector. And let me try that. Probably, again, something very simple that I can't really see here. Okay, perfect. So now I saw it was working, right? At least it tried to add. Let me try here as well. CSS selector, password, type submit. Let me try comment this out back. Okay, so now we saw it was actually typing something, right? But it was closed the browser too fast. So here we can actually add one quick timeout. Thread sleep, for example, for 300 milliseconds. And we need to add an exception here. So let's run it one more time. Okay, yeah, so it says my username is not correct. Okay, so for some reason, it didn't like when I specified ID here, which is weird. I mean, pretty much this is the same thing, but okay. So if it works, again, guys, I just wanna for you to follow the structure, how our test cases looks like right now, right? So right now, let me close everything here. So this is gonna be our test case, right? This is our new test case. And again, as I mentioned like a million times, it doesn't have like any single Java code. So it's on a Cucumber syntax. So it's on the Gherkin syntax, right? So this is like Gherkin, this is the format. And because for our framework, like Java still need translation, right? Because it doesn't understand the human language. That's why we need to translate literally each step here, right? And so this is our translation for the Java, and pretty much for each of the step here, we need to translate and tell Java what we actually mean when we say I click login button, right? How do you guys like the structure now? How do you guys like this approach?
It is okay, it's good, but I think it's better to practice with Java since you're gonna have like job interview with Java programming language or Python.
Yes. Let's. I understand your concern, but let's imagine not from the interview perspective, but from the real automation approach, right? So this is another automation approach. So what it does here, it's try to isolate all the test cases from the Java or from programming language, right? And here it's like more in human readable language. Like, how do you like this approach, like isolated from the interview process?
Yeah, it's better, but I think most of the company will use object-oriented because that's why you go to the job interview and they ask you to know.
Well, we still, I mean, we actually will go to that. We will still use object-oriented concepts. So for now, I mean, to make it simpler, I just use like a driver find element, right? But you can use like like all the OOP concepts here. You can use, I mean, pretty much here you can use like any Java code, right? You can use page object model here. This is just a more simplified version. So you're not getting rid of that. Only one difference here, instead of test written like that, right? You're just having them written like that, but everything else will gonna eventually still the same.
Yeah, it's more understandable. I'm not saying that it's more like readable and it's good, great. But I don't know. We will see in the real world which like app or tools they're gonna to use. But anyway, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's actually a great question from Dmitry here. Could I repeat why we should use Cucumber and Gherkin if we already know Selenium? Like, why do you guys think, why, I mean, I can tell you from my experience right now, like majority of companies, they are using the Cucumber, like a lot of companies. And it's a lot of, I mean, like they're doing that in purpose, right? So what do you think, what's the main purpose here? Like why people using the Cucumber? If they can just use like Selenium codes, right? If they can use this approach. I think it may be used for less technical teams, more understandable. They are able to read and understand what you're doing and follow up on the code to make it easier to understand. Yeah, guys, this is exactly why. Okay, let's imagine you joined a tech company, right? And you're gonna be the first automation engineers, and you will write them full automation framework from scratch, right? And let's say you are only one automation engineers and they don't have any plans to hire more people, right? Who will help you with automation. And can you imagine, like, you need to write a framework, you need to support it, and also you need to contribute like hundreds of test cases every week, right? You just won't be able, you just won't be able to do that, right? Because it's a lot of work. So what you can do instead of that, you can just define all of the step definitions, right? And you can tell your like manual testers or like less technical people, you can say, hey, this is how you can write automation. So this is all the steps that you can use. If you need like more additional steps, I can define it for you because I know Java and you don't know Java. And manual QA, even though they're not technical, they still can contribute more and more test cases. And this is why, I mean, you know, like to be honest, writing test cases itself, it's kind of like boring, right? Especially for you, because you already know how to write test automation framework from scratch. So you can leave like more boring stuff to less technical people, so they will contribute test cases, and you will work in more interesting part to, I mean, to make framework more powerful and to work on the more technical things, right? And this is how you will like, you will contribute more people to add more test cases. Because I mean, if you will ask them to write test cases in this way, I mean, well, they might be like scared because it's still a Java code, right? They don't know the syntax, they don't understand how it works. You need to understand, you need to explain them what's the object, what's the class, why are we defining object like that, why we're calling these methods, right? So this is how it's going to be easier for them. So it's going to be easier for manual QAs, and more important, for your product managers, they can steal what your automation test, what they're actually doing, right? How do you actually test in your application? They can like understand and see. So this is like considered to be like one of the main benefits of the BDD approach and the Cucumber, and that's why many company using that. Okay, guys, so it's 11:12 already. Let's take a quick coffee break for 5 minutes. And after that, we're gonna talk about downsides of Cucumber approach. And we also gonna explore more features that you can do with Cucumber. All right, so let's have a quick break. So it's right now it's 11:12. Let's be back here at 11:17 and we will continue. Okay. All right, guys, so I will need to mute myself and stop the video. It's going to be a lot of more cool, interesting stuff after this break. So see you in 5 minutes. All right, guys, it's 11:17, and let's continue. Hopefully it was enough time for you to get a coffee or water. So now let me share my screen, and let's continue. So you guys can hear me, right? And see my screen. Okay, I can hear you. Looks like I can hear you. Let me change my speaker. Oh no, actually I should be able to hear you. All right, so now let's continue. So so this is our login step definitions. Let's actually take a closer look here. So how can we modify our test cases? So for example, in the login feature, we have steps for opening browser and closing browser, right? So pretty much, I mean, we don't have to define it on the code level, right? I mean, in the test case level. So we can get rid of that and define it as a like a cucumber precondition and like setup and a tear down, right? The same way as we did before. And one quick note here, guys. So you probably noticed here I use the different annotations, right? For opening a browser, I use the given. For like login steps, I used when. And for expect result annotation, I use then, right? And pretty much it matches everything here as well. But it's not strict rules. Let's say if instead of given, you will define it with like when annotation, right? Or then annotation, it's still gonna work. So it doesn't really matter how you're gonna define them, but it's still better to define annotation to the specific part that it's related. So like, let's say we know that, for example, I open login page, this is a precondition, right? And instead of when, it's better to use a given keyword. But again, no matter what kind of keyword you will define here, it's still gonna work. All right, so let's get rid of open browser and close browser. Right, and our given is going to be our login page. Right, so it's going to be our precondition. And so how can we tell Cucumber? So you need to open the browser before executing each of the test scenario, right? So it's pretty much the same way as we did in a test ng. So if we're going to take a look to the base test, right? So how we did that, we just use before method and after method, right? So in the Cucumber, it's the same thing. You just need to say, you just need to use before keyword and make sure it comes from the Cucumber, right? Not from test ng. And after, besides that, you can also define some methods which are going to be before step and after step, right? So like, let's say if you want to do like any additional actions after each step is going to be implemented, you can use like before step or after step sections here as well. Okay, so let's use before here, and here closing the browser, let's use after. And here we need to import the class. Actually, let me make sure this is the right one. Yeah, Cucumber EP Java. Perfect. Now, so if I'm going to get rid of these steps and if I'm going to run them, so we can see it's opened and close the browser the same way as, and we don't even need to specify it, right? Okay. And I mean, again, to create another test case, let's say empty email or empty password, right? So we can just copy this scenario and pass another scenario and say like login empty email, right? And because our email is going to be empty, we're going to leave it as empty here, right? And it's going to complain because it cannot read this step. It's not identified because Cucumber, what it does, it's actually check for the entire string match. Because we have step I add email here, but we don't have like I add empty email, right? So what we need to do, we need to go here, copy this method, and define empty method here. I open, actually not open, I add empty email, right? And my value here is gonna be empty email. Okay, let's run it and see. So yeah, we can see they are working. Right, but in this case, let's say if I want to create another test case with empty password, right? So empty email, empty password, right? So I will still reuse this I add email, and my password is going to be empty, right? And I also will need to define new method. Okay, I add empty password. All right, so now let's see here. Okay, so it's not complaining anymore, and let's run all of these test cases. Okay, so it's working, empty email working, empty password is also working. But it was an empty password, but maybe it triggers it first, then this one. Okay, so pretty much, again, as I said, Cucumber looks for exact match. And if you want to define like another step, you pretty much need to make sure it's going to be a match to this sentence, right? But here, in this approach, it's downsides, right? Why? Because pretty much here it's just a different input data, right? So here it's email, here it's empty email, and here it's just a password, and here it's just an empty password, right? So, I mean, again, it's just the input data. It's not like another logic change, right? So logic is still the same. So what do you guys think? How can we approach, make it like more, make our step definitions more flexible? Knowing that Cucumber will look for exact text match. Any ideas? Actually, I maybe don't hear. Let me actually check my speaker, guys, because okay, let me change it to my another speaker. Okay, can you guys please say something?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
perfect.
can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you finally.
So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So here, again, how Cucumber works, we define steps, right? And it's looking for the exact sentence, like exact string match, and it's looking them in this login step definitions, right? Because of that, I mean, if I want to add another email, right, I need to define another step with another email, right? And pretty much it's not our test logic change, it's just a different input parameters, right? And I don't really want to add one additional, I mean, it's pretty much, can you imagine like if you will build a framework and you will give your test definitions for your QA team, right? And they're gonna implement like 100 test cases with different input parameters.
Can you do the for loop? Can you implement the for loop? Just say, oh, I don't know, add emails, like give me 3 emails or something like that. Copy the emails 3 times, something like that.
I didn't quite understand.
The for loop, can you call the for loop in this situation since you want to duplicate the emails?
Yeah, but it's still gonna look for the, well, yes. So you're saying like for loop inside of the step definition?
Yes.
Yeah, but like, let's say, how would you, let's say, I mean, how are you gonna differentiate if it's gonna be used for like in a for loop, like which variable to use?
Okay. And then you have to declare, well, if you put more emails, so you have to declare more variables, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So maybe you want to call list.
Yeah, but in this case, it's still gonna be, you still need to use like another step definition, right? Because you can't, what I want to do here, I want to make my steps more flexible, right? So I can pass different input parameters.
So can you, I mean, maybe in Cucumbers, there's another annotation, so where you can do a step before the, you know, to create another email?
Create another email.
Like there is annotation, right? Can you show me like the all annotation that Cucumbers has?
Oh, it just all, I mean, well, let me go here. Okay, so it's not, well, okay, it's not very listed here very nicely, but yeah, I can give you, but I can tell you it's not in annotation level.
And then you have to declare variables somewhere, I don't know.
Okay, so you think it's variable. Dmitry thinks it's variable, and Natalia thinks it's create new method with email as a parameter. And how are we gonna pass this parameter, Natalia? You're pretty much right here. So pretty much here, guys, do you remember how we solved this issue on Java test cases, right? Java level test cases. We had the same thing. And what we did, we are created parameterized methods, right? We created methods where we can pass different parameters, right? And different email values. Okay, data provider, Harry, yes, but data providers we're gonna cover on Monday, but they're gonna use the same approach pretty much. I'm gonna show you on Monday how to use BDD, no, actually, data-driven approach in a Cucumber. Okay, so in a Java, we just created the methods with which accepted like different parameters, right? So in a Cucumber, it's pretty much going to be the same thing, but the only thing is because Cucumber looks for the text match, right? Have you guys heard about the term regular expressions, regex?
No.
No? Did somebody hear about regular expressions? No? Okay. Okay, no worries. So I mean, regular expression is like completely new, another like topic. It's completely like new programming language. I mean, kind of like programming language. So basically, regular expressions, they allow to, if you're looking like for in a search, if you're searching in the text, they're pretty much allowing to use specific patterns And by the specific patterns, they allow to check, to find specific elements, right? So for Cucumber, I mean, what you can do here, instead of like defining the email hard-coded on the step definition, what you can use a dynamic variable, right? You can say string, right? And this is going to be our kind of like more simplified regular expression field for the Cucumber. And this string is going to be, it's not going to be hard-coded. It's going to be like more, it's going to be like depends of what the value you're providing here. And the string, you can use it as in this parameter, in the method parameter, and say like string email, right? And pass this email right here. And this is how you can make it like flexible, right? So in this case, you will tell, okay, I add, and here supposed to be like any value for email. And this value we're going to trigger as a method parameter, and we're going to pass it on the send keys, right? Pretty much the same thing as we did with Java tests. Okay, let's see here if I didn't break anything here, so looks fine. Let me comment out them for now, and let me run my test case. Yep, so it works. And now, because our step is more flexible, we can like pass any emails, right? And it's gonna treat them as a string. And this is how we made our step definition more parameterized, right? So the only thing is we specified it's gonna be string. Also, we can also make it as a integer, right? So we can say this is gonna be integer, or it's gonna be int. Yeah, int. Let's say if you're gonna pass any parameter as an integer, so you can use like int, like open parentheses, close parentheses, and inside specify int, and you're gonna pass it as an int number and use it somewhere else, right? So this is how you can specify like different types of the values that you're gonna accept on your method. Right, and after that, we don't need multiple steps, right? We can get rid of that. We just want to use like one method to passing the emails. So the same thing for password. So we can say just string password, right? And here we're gonna say string password. Password. Password, specified it here, right? And here we don't need this method anymore. All right, and this is how we can make our steps more flexible.
May I ask you?
Yeah, go ahead, Vladimir.
Can we pass like two parameters like string and integer in one line?
Yeah, you can. Let's say I add, you can say integer and passwords, right? And it's gonna say like integer, oh wait. Integer, variable, and a string password. I mean, yeah, you can use like as much as you want. You can use like as much of this regular expressions. I mean, kind of like simplified regular expressions on your method on your step, like as much as you want. And in example of my slides, actually, I think where was it? Let me. Well, not here. Yeah. So yeah, you see here they also use the integer in their sentence, and they use like this. They triggered as an integer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, let me delete that. Okay, so now let's move on And another thing, what you can do is called one common step, like precondition. So let's say, you know, like in your login feature, right? Because you are testing the login feature, you know, like for every test case, login test case, you will need to open the login page, right? And instead of just saying like open login page for each of the test case, you can define a precondition on a suite level, right? So how to do that? You can just say background, right? And give this step, given I open login page, right? And you can comment all of them here, right? And then we can run our test cases. Okay, so it didn't work. Let's try. Maybe it didn't like because I didn't use a given. Given. Step definition. Yeah, that's actually weird. Let me try again. Let me close it. And let me try one more time. Okay, it still doesn't want to open still doesn't want to open the browser. Let's see what I did here. So given I open the login page. Oh yeah, actually, you know what? I know what I did here. It's just a syntax issue. I need to, it's gonna be like it should be like in the next line. So background given I open login page. So now let's try one more time. Okay. And now we can see it's opening the browser and the same page for all the test cases, right? So using the background, you can use like more common steps that you already use like across all the test cases. So you don't have to write them over and over again here and here and here. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And we can continue. Actually, for the Cucumber regular expressions, you can open their official like website. Cucumber regular expressions. Actually. And here, I mean, you can see like what's the different types that you can pass. You can pass like integers, you can pass strings, you can pass float. You can just use like a word. So it just matches words without white space, right? You can pass like a string. You can like pass anything here, and you can create like a custom parameters, like in case you really want to. You can create like optional parameters, right? If you really want. I mean, it's like very simplified, but eventually you can do like anything you want here. But in most cases, I just use like a string or integer. I mean, in the worst case, if you will need to reuse your integer given parameter to the string, you can always change it here, right? Okay, so let's take a look to our implementation here, right? So again, we have our login features. This is our test cases. This is where this is probably here. We are not gonna work much, ideally. We're gonna give it to the manual QAs, right? Who will help us and contribute more test cases. And we're probably gonna work more in here in the step definition level. So what do you guys think, what do we miss here? Like what the advantages of our previous framework we are missing here? From the architecture perspective.
You don't have any asserts?
Yes, that's true. And well, because I don't have asserts in my test cases, right? So I see a login success message. Technically here instead of thread slip, it should be assert true and something, right? Like 1 equal to 1. So we're gonna have an assertion here, and it's gonna be in the then keyword. But like from architecture perspective, right? Do you like this architecture or not? What do you think? What do we missing here that we use for our Java TSNG, like our traditional framework? Any idea, guys?
The base page where you collect all common stuff like CIS, CSS, XPath, something which is in common, and then it's missing like construction. They're missing. I think like the concept of like subclasses, classes, or morphism, like the essential concept that you usually use in the previous concept.
What's it called? Like what's the name of that?
Inheritance. It depends what you're using, right? So we used like inheritance, and we use superclass and construction.
Why did we use that?
Well, because you connect one class to another, like you connect like parents to child that are connect to the superclass, and it simplified the code very. It's a good thing to have like this like connection to between child classes and parents classes.
Yep, but what's it called like from the higher level? So you pretty much
object oriented, you mean?
It's, I mean, object oriented. It's more like it's more
Generic.
like a Java thing, right? That allow us to do something that we did. So what's it called?
The factor. You mean the POM, page object model?
Yeah, exactly. That's architecture pattern, right? That we use our previous framework. And as you can see here, we're not using the page object model anywhere, right? We're just defining everything in right here, and we don't use like any page object model at all. So this is a key piece that we miss here, right? And let's say, how can we use, how can we like add page object model here? Actually, very simple. The same way as we did it before. So instead of like saying driver get login page, right? So we can initiate the login page. Login page, call it login, right? And say like a new login page, right? And we need to pass our driver here. And inside of login page, we can just say login page open, where is that, clone equals get title. Login page, open page. Yeah, perfect. That's what I want. Right. And this is how we can like implement page object model. And here, so we can say, login open page, and so it's going to be add enter email, right? And our enter email is going to be our given email here. Right, and here is going to be the same thing. Let me just copy that. Login email and password. And here we can comment out this and use click submit, right? I mean, assertion, I mean, it's the same thing for assertion as well. And for driver closing, I mean, well, it's our precondition, right? So let's try to run it and see if that works. Okay, perfect. So now let's take a look here. So what we just did, guys, we implemented page object model for our step definition. And so how our framework looks now. So on more like in the top level, we have our test cases, right? Our feature files, which is completely isolated from the Java at all. And on the second level, we have our step definitions, right? So which is basically define each step for Java readable language, right? And in the lower level, in the third level, we have our page object model, right? Which basically defines each of our like implementation details, right? So we pretty much added here additional layer. And if in our previous approach, we just use a page object model, right, as our test implementation details, and we call it directly in the test cases. Right now, we added like additional layer. So the first one is going to be our login, like, I mean, test cases. Second one is going to be step definitions, right? And the third one is going to be our page object model, right? So pretty much our test automation framework is now going to have 3 main layers, right? That we're going to use and implement here. Okay, let's take a look. This is test, this is step definitions, and this is our page object concept, right? Does it make sense, guys? Are you still like following me?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you can look how it all works together. And so let's actually create maybe another feature file for different components. So we work with login. And let's say if I want to create the test cases for, I don't know, for sign up, right? So what I will need to do, I will need to create another feature file and name it as a file sign up. What is that? Contractor. Okay, I didn't specify the extension. Let me delete it because IntelliJ ID doesn't like any unknown files, right? So let me create a new one, sign up contractors dot feature. All right, so this is our another feature file, and we can create give it a name, like sign up as a contractor, right? And here we're going to have our scenario, like sign up as a contractor success, right? So here we're going to have like given I am on contractor sign up page, right? When I add email. Well, you see, it's even like, so this plugin, it also can, let me actually try it one more time. So once I start to type something, right? Once I start to type my test steps, it's actually has like recommendations drop down, right? So it says like, this is steps that you already defined, so you can reuse them. Let's try and say I add email, I don't know, like some random email, right? .com, and I can say, given when then I successfully signed up. All right, and so this means like, because it's a completely new feature, I will need to create new step definitions, right? I will need to create step definition for sign up, login, like sign up step definition, right? So I can say sign up step definitions. And I again, let me say feature. Oh, actually, wait, it's not, it's gonna be Java file. Sorry guys, I implemented here. So let's delete it. Let's create new Java class, sign up step definitions. And here, I mean, again, I will need to define all the steps the same way as I did for login step definitions, right? And also, after that, I will need to, after this like sign up definitions, I will like call my page object and call like all these page object methods, right? Like for, okay, let me create just one as the example. Like let's say I open login page. Let's take it here. And instead of login page, it's going to be sign up page, right? Which we don't have here for some reason. Sign up page. Sign up page. Actually, for now, let's just use the home page because I will need to create a new sign up page object. It's going to be home page. And here is going to be home page as well. And we're going to use it, new class of home page, pass the driver here. And here I will need to define my, I will need to open this page, right? And I need to define driver one more time. All right. So now, as you guys understand, like the full structure, right, of our new approach to creating a test cases, I already talked about the benefits, right? So what it can be better to use this approach, because I mean, you can involve like non-technical people to write test cases, right? Your product managers can understand and write test cases, and so on and so on and so on. What do you guys think? What's the disadvantages of this approach? What's the cons? You can see here. Any ideas? Because I can tell you many people hate Cucumber. Many people hate behavior-driven development, especially automation engineers or like stats. As they usually don't they're not really fans of the Cucumber approach. And what do you guys think why?
As others says, it's like double time, takes so much time. And I think sometimes you can like, while you are like going back and forth, you can even skip steps.
I can skip what?
You can skip steps, like you're writing and you have to go back and forth, and you can kind of like, can skip the one step that can compromise your script.
Yeah, that's true. And well, like what's in a bigger picture, you think?
You write manual test plus you write automation test. so it's a lot of work.
Yeah, exactly. So you see, like from our perspective, right, as automation engineers, it's pretty much, yeah, as you said, Natalia here, it's double work for us, right? Because we need to create scenarios, right? And then we need to define step translation here, right? And inside of the step translation, we need to like define actual methods. So for now, it's actually double work because for each step, we need to define, excuse me, step definitions and so on and so on. And which is like not make, I mean, for us, because we are comfortable with Java, right? We can like write everything in Java and we don't really need to like create for each step additional piece of code, right? Because we can do that purely in Java. And for us, it's going to be more convenient because here you still have kind of like limitations, right? Sometimes you want to make your test cases more flexible, or sometimes you want some Java features inside of your test cases, but here you still kind of limited what Cucumber provides here. And again, as you guys said, it's like double work. It doesn't have any benefits for us. And again, in many companies, it was made for a good reason, like for, so like product managers, business analysts, QA engineers will understand your code and they will contribute more. Like other people, not technical people, can write test cases. But in reality, most probably, guys, you will be the only person who will write test cases, who will debug test cases, and who will do all of that. Pretty much nobody will most probably appreciate it. Nobody will help you, and you will have to do everything here by your own, unfortunately. And that's why many people think that's not a good approach. And that's why especially automation engineers or stats, they don't like Cucumber because it's double work and nobody using that as it's supposed to be used, unfortunately. So that's why, but guys, be careful in the interview. If like in the interview, like if you'll have like interview, right? Phone call or face-to-face, if like someone will ask you like, what do you think about the Cucumber? I mean, you can just say like it has its own pros and cons, and you can tell about the pros and you can tell about the cons, but don't give like any strict opinion, right? Because like back in the days, I was like, I didn't like Cucumber at all. For me, it was useless. And I remember on the interview, I said like, I mean, there was a company and they actually use a Cucumber. And on the interviews, they asked me like, hey, what do you think about the Cucumber? And I said like, well, like from automation perspective, it's a waste of time because it's double work. You have to do like additional steps. And that's why they told me like, hey, I mean, I'm sorry, but we have a Cucumber and you will need to work with Cucumber and we don't want you to be working on the project that you don't like, right? And that's why they just spoiled me and they say, like, okay, we're probably gonna proceed with people who like Cucumber. So be careful here, just safe opinion about the Cucumber and all of the stuff you can say that it has its own pros and cons, right? And you can describe pros and you can describe its cons, right? So how can you use it? But again, many companies using it, a lot of positions requires knowledge of Cucumber, especially in LA. I don't know why, but it's still like for you, it's still good like to be familiar with Cucumber implementation. Okay, does it make sense, guys?
Yes, but in general, you don't have to give any personal opinion during the interview job on phone call or interview phone call. You just say positive things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, they will ask your expertise anyway, right? And you just need to be like more flexible here. I mean, don't make my mistake. If you know this company using a Cucumber, don't tell Cucumber it's a bad thing, right? So try to be like more neutral position. You can say like, hey, it has its own pluses and its own disadvantages, right? I mean, it's the same thing. Like someone can ask you like, why like Java better is than Python, right? I mean, you can tell that, right, directly. You can say like, yeah, like Java has its pluses and its minuses, right? Like disadvantages. And it is the same thing. Try like in the interview, be more natural about things that you're using.
Oh, well.
All right, guys, do you guys have any questions about Cucumber? If you don't, let me actually commit this, because I think I forgot to commit my work from Tuesday, and you guys asked me about that, and sorry, so let me do that right now. So let me say commit message. So here it's a parallel execution, right, that I didn't commit before, and plus Cucumber. Okay, so I don't need to push my Gradle files because this is the settings. I need to push this. And so let's see, I don't need to push this because this is configurations. And for quiz tests, I will probably need to push all of them, right? So this is all of my features and step definitions. Okay, let me add all of them. And the Cucumber, let me commit it.
Azad, how did you open this window to commit the changes in IntelliJ?
Yeah, well, you can do that using the GitHub desktop, right? But IntelliJ IDE has its own Git system. So if you go like to this menu, you can see VCS menu option here, and you just click in commit, and it will show you like what the changes you made here.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, let me select it one more time. So I don't need that. I need everything here. And I will need to change my Gradle configurations here as well. Parallel execution plus Cucumber. Okay, let's commit it. I don't need the code analysis, so commit anyway. So it says it's committed, right? But it's not on my GitHub repository. I mean, hopefully, guys, you're already more comfortable working with Git. So you should be able to do that by yourself. Otherwise, you won't be able to submit any homework. Okay, guys, so your homework is gonna be, I mean, I finished a little bit earlier today. Actually, with last group, it took like more time because they usually like ask more questions than you guys, and I had to explain like one by one what we're doing here, what we're doing that, and why we're doing like this way, not another. For some reason, you guys ask less questions. I hope it's because you really understand that. And again, guys, you will need to implement it by yourself. That's going to be your homework. You need to refactor your test cases and implement Cucumber to your current framework. And after that, I mean, you may have like little issues. If you will have little issues, please raise in the chat. We will try to help them from technical part. But eventually, I think you should be able to you should be able to do that because there's like nothing very specific. It's pretty much the same thing as we did before, right? But we're just adding like additional layer and additional dependencies. Okay, so let me check if I pushed it. So git push. Okay, let's push it. Okay, push successful. So let's go to my GitHub account. And let's go to Selenium quiz. Okay, so this is my commit here. Let me send it to your chat, guys. So you will see what I did today and on Tuesday. So this is going to be your point on reference. And by the way, guys, if your code is not working, you can always look to my commit and see what you did different than I did. And maybe it will help you. Okay, so questions on the side.
I do have a question, but it's not related to Cucumber, but you can first answer others' question.
Yeah. could you recommend good site for algorithm problem practice? And Alexei already submitted you the source. I mean, well, guys, LeetCode is going to be your best tool for practice for algorithms. And as I said many times earlier, try in a LeetCode, try to solve only the, let me actually open it here. Dun, dun, dun. So you can go to the problems and I mean, this is not my primary account. This is my testing account, and that's why you see only like 4 problems solved. But I think in my personal account, I saw like many more of them. So what you can do, guys, you can, again, don't take any medium or hard exercises because nobody will ask you them, right? But you please try to focus on the easy part, like only choose difficult by easy, because this is what you're probably going to be asked on the interview. And the medium and hard one, I mean, don't even start to do with them because they are overcomplicated and most probably nobody will ask you these exercises. And again, as I said, try to solve them like per algorithm, one algorithm per day. And this will keep your mind more fresh and you will be like more comfortable. Even if you don't know the answer for this algorithm, try to find how other people solved it. I mean, for example, here, you can go to the discussions, right? I mean, sometimes they have its own solution, but sometimes it's hidden. So you can go to the discussions and you can see like how other people solved it, right? Like, for example, like Java, one line, and they just simply solve this. I mean, try to understand the solution if you can solve it by yourself. I would say try, if you cannot solve the problem like in 30 minutes, then see the solution. But first, try to solve by yourself. Because in most cases, when I had the interviews, I've been asked all the algorithms every day, and eventually I just memorized one of the most popular algorithms. I mean, actually, one of the most popular algorithms you guys already solved as part of your homework. You did like a palindrome, FizzBuzz, reverse string, what else? Recursion. This is one of the most frequently asked questions, at least for me and for other students. But again, they are simpler, but if you still need to go here and to try to practice every day. Another great tool for preparing for the technical interview, it's there is a book, it's called Cracking the Coding Interview. So Cracking the Coding Interview. As an addition to that, you can actually purchase this book, and it's like very popular one, and it's more complicated than LeetCode. There's like a lot of complicated algorithms, and there is a solution for them. Well, so this book is mostly preparing people to pass interviews for the Apple, Facebook, or like for the top companies. But again, for you, I would still recommend you to buy it and to go over. If you want to understand some of the part, at least you will get like a foundations, right, of the algorithms. So I would recommend you to get this book as well, as long as working on the LeetCode. And again, while you guys doing that, you still can apply, right? And you still can apply, and you still go to the technical interviews, because I mean, in most cases, they don't ask. I don't ask difficult questions, right? They usually ask something simple because they usually want to know, like, if you know programming language, right? If you solve like one simple algorithm, this means you are very comfortable. And usually, you don't stick only with Java positions. You can also apply for the Python positions, Ruby positions, because guys, you already know the Java, right? One of the complex programming language for QA automation. And if you know Java, it will be very, very easy for you to switch to Python or to Ruby or to C# or to anything like any another programming language, because Java is considered to be the hardest one, right? But it's not as hard as you figured out, because you guys pretty much nailed it, made all the homeworks. And so one more thing, even if you will apply for a company which use another programming language, they will ask you the algorithm. And let's say if you don't know the Python, they usually allow you to solve this algorithm using the Java or any other programming language that you're most comfortable. So once you will start to apply, please apply for any automation positions and don't look they're using like a Java, JavaScript, Python, or something else. Because for QA automations, they are more language agnostic, right? And again, in my career, I worked with Python, PHP, Ruby, JavaScript, Kotlin, Swift. I mean, what else? Java. I pretty much like work with all of the modern programming languages, right? And for me, it was easy to switch because all the testing frameworks, no matter of the language, they will all use pitch object model. They will pretty much use all of that we use here. Probably they also will use the Cucumber. So it's going to be the same thing, the same structure, the same architecture. The only difference is going to be on the syntax. And it's a little like more differences in other languages, but I'm pretty sure, guys, you will be able to pick them up fast because, I mean, you already know the Java. Okay, makes sense, guys?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Can I?
And one more thing, guys. I know right now it's a quarantine and you probably heard a lot of news about layouts, especially in LA. Like many people like writing me messages, hey, like I've been layout, there's like layouts going on, and there's like not much companies hiring right now. So I actually trying to monitor the situation right now. And I mean, because I'm really curious what's going on, right? Because you guys probably, after finishing bootcamp, you want to start to apply it right away. So in a Glassdoor, I mean, I analyzing mostly LA and California, but you can do the same thing for your city where you live. So you can see, like, let's say for QA positions, like let's say in Venice, right? And you can say like posted in the last 3 days, right? So you can see there's like 311 jobs posted in Venice, right? It's like in 3 days, right? Like let's try QA automation. QA automation. I mean, we need to be very flexible in the keywords. Posted in 3 days. I mean, you guys see it's like still in the last 3 days, it's posted 73 QA automation positions, right? And we can still see, we even like hiring in a Beachbody lead engineer for software mobile, but I think it's not related to the QA automation. So there's still a lot of positions opened. And for the layouts, I mean, there is some tech companies that their primary business focusing on the business areas that were mostly affected, right? So I know there was like a big layout in the Bird company. If you guys are Bird, they are making like a scooters that you can rent, right? And because nobody is outside right now, like nobody renting the scooters, I mean, of course, their business was impacted and they had to lay out people, right? But there's still another tech companies, let's say Beachbody right now, it's growing because gyms are closed right now and many people going to the our website and purchase our online workout programs, right? And we are actually thriving right now and we're not stopping hiring. And I know like any other like tech companies, they are still hiring. So I would say still go to the market, still try to apply. Maybe you will feel more competition or like less positions than usually. But again, if I would have a choose, go to the job market and try to find a job, or just wait doing nothing and like pretty much waiting until the quarantine will end, I would prefer the first choice. Like, please try to do something. Maybe it's going to be a little bit harder because there's like more people on the job market and maybe like a little bit less positions than it's usual. But again, people still hiring. We still have our students to be hired. We still like hiring in the companies. The hiring process is not completely freezed. There are still positions. Yeah, I mean, yeah, guys, I know like some of your projects may be like terminated. I know there's like not a good position on the job market right now, but all I want to say is just don't give up. Still try to apply, still try to go to the interviews. I know it's a little bit weird right now, but we can still see the job market is still active and we can still see our students still getting hired. So don't give up easily. Try to do like, don't stop applying. And yeah, and one more thing, guys, I know we learned Java, and I know some of you right now trying to pick up like another programming languages as a Python, JavaScript, or Ruby. I would say don't do that right now because eventually it's going to be the same thing. Try to focus on the job search first. Please try to find your first QA automation job, and most probably there, if they will use another programming language, you will learn their programming language while you will start to work, right? Or don't switch programming language. This is mistakes that I did before when I learned automation. I tried to learn like 3 programming languages at the same time without having QA automation job, and it was just totally a waste of time. I would rather spend my effort for job search instead of picking up like new languages. You can still train algorithms, you can still practice on our current framework, but please don't start to learn new languages because this is going to be useless for you unless you will find a new like QA automation job. After you will find a QA automation job, you will be like more free. Then you can like try to see how Python works, like how JavaScript works, but for now you don't really need that. Okay, guys. Any other questions from you?
Yes, but as I said, it's not related to the current lessons.
Okay. So we can like actually.
But if we before having this like a private Zoom or whatever, I want to ask you one question that I think like it will benefit everyone. So in a real job, you do automation, right? And then while you automate things, then you can find bugs, right? So how would you deal with bugs? So what do? Do you write a report, like an Excel report bug, and then you submit this Excel report bug to the developer?
Yeah, well, you can just tell QA like, hey, we have this issue. Did you guys change something here? Or, usually you're just creating a regular bug report. And maybe you're skipping your test cases until they will fix it.
Yeah, but then, okay, you kind of like write down all like bugs that you found on the, I don't know, login page, for example. Then you just, or either you send an email to the developer, or either you use an application, for example, Jira, where you can connect with the developer so they can see what is not working and they can fix afterward. Yeah,
exactly. You will just create it on Jira. Probably you will work on the Scrum, like you will still be assigned to the Scrum team and you still work on the Scrum and you will probably focus on the one particular project and you guys will be all on the same team and you're going to have like one Scrum Jira board.
What is a Scrum? Is like an application where you write?
Scrum, it's like a methodology, like Agile. Like, have you heard of Agile?
Yes, Agile is a...
Yeah, Scrum is the same thing. It's just like 2-week sprints when you work in a short sprints in 2 weeks when you're trying to implement one piece of application and just release it. And because of that, you guys working on the teams, you have like a Scrum team and you pretty much contacting with developers on QAs or product managers very, very closely.
Okay, so but can you do as quality assurance automation? Can you just talk directly with the developer, or you have to talk with your lead manager? Because
usually you talk to with manual QA. You need, because they are more because they're testing manually, they know more about all the changes that's happening, right? So usually I ask manual QAs like, hey, like I see this issue, like, did you guys see this before? Or like, was it recently introduced? And if they say no, it was just recently introduced, and then I just creating a bug and assigning to the developers.
Okay. Okay, so you can kind of like summarize so everyone can understand the process and the logic, how that works. So
Yeah, I mean, well, you have your, well, you already covered the Jenkins part of Dennis, right? And you kind of know like about nightly runs. Like you can set up your test cases night runs every night, right? In a Jenkins by schedule. And pretty much you come in next morning, you see you are looking to the failures, you're making sure if they failed because of the issue or they failed because you didn't update your test case, your test, right? Or maybe locators or something. And if it's not your fault, maybe it's application issue, you need to go like, I mean, you need to create a bug report. If it's issue on the script itself, you just need to make a fix on your script.
okay. So and it is up to the company if you use like which app you use, like Jira or different apps to
Yeah,
commit.
most probably it's going to be Jira because like 95% of tech companies using the Jira, so probably it's going to be Jira.
Okay, so thank you. So tell me what I have to do for the next step.
Just let me after we will finish the session.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Do you guys have any questions related to the Cucumber or the job search or anything? Okay, if you guys don't.
Wait, I have another question. Sorry. So when we apply, for example, I wrote down my like resume and I said, oh, I work inside this like project.
Mm-hmm.
And then some website or some company, they ask, for references.
Mm-hmm.
So can I give the phone number of the company? How does that work?
Usually you don't give, well, you should not give references until you will pass face-to-face interview.
Yes, but if I, for example, I have like face-to-face interview and the company wants reference as well, what is the next step?
Yeah, we can provide you like as a reference from the bootcamp, like we can verify you actually. I mean, well, because all of these projects, right, like Aquidos, Jeans, they are working as our, we are working with them as a we're doing consulting for them pretty much, and pretty much you guys working on these projects, and that's why you can put these projects to your resume, right? So this is our agreement with their companies, and you can put it to your resume. And like we will be able to provide you references because you are actually working on them, worked on them, you did like homework, you like contributed, and we can see your work, so we will be able to verify.
Okay, but I mean, will you be nice to give in giving references even though someone is not very, very excellent, for example?
Yeah, I mean, if you will pass, I mean, again, we don't want these people like to be reference to be disturbed like every time, right? That's why we only giving references when you have like a background check. And in the background check, it will start only after you will pass face-to-face interview. And that's why we have a strict rules. We're giving references only after you guys pass face-to-face interview.
Oh, okay.
I mean, guys, that's a normal practice. Like at your work, you don't want to share your manager's phone number, right? Because first of all, you don't know if company is hiring you or not, right? Or you don't want your reference, or you don't want your manager be disturbed with like so many calls from different recruiters, right? You only want to use this reference only after you will do like background check, right? In the final stages.
But if the company, for example, you have like a face-to-face interview and then the company say, oh, can I have since you can give me references, can I have the phone number of your mentor or manager? So what I have to do? I mean, what I'm going to say to him in that case, because I'm not in the process of the background check. I'm not sure if I'm going to get hired or not.
Well, they will let you know. They will let you know. We need a reference for background check. I mean, if you will pass face-to-face interview and they will ask your references, that's 95% means they started background check. In this case, we can provide it to you.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Sorry.
No worries. All right, guys. If you don't have any more questions, have a nice week. Again, as I said, we're gonna have 2 sessions on Tuesday and Thursday. On Tuesday, we're gonna talk more about the cucumber. And on the Thursday, our last official session, we're gonna do like more algorithm exercises, right? So to refresh your mind about all the algorithms. So have a good weekend, guys. Stay safe, stay home, and practice, do your homework, and see you all on Tuesday. Goodbye.